Absolutely. Before we dive into this segment, Christina, I got to tell you, we were chatting right before about our weekend recovery here, like what's just going on in our lives. And we were talking about resistance,
Yes.
this whole thing about like, when you hit resistance in life, and what happens is you automatically think it's like, you know what, like maybe I shouldn't be doing this, or maybe I should stop. But sometimes that's a time that you got to really push forward, right?
So true, so true. And it is easy to, kind of figure out or get this idea that everything is, if it's right, it should have been easy. And I have just not ever subscribed to that. I mean, I think I might have when I first got sober, like, why is this so hard? But going through life and realizing that sometimes the more resistance is the bigger reason for you to double down. So I've started to kind of invite a little resistance because that means I'm doing something that matters.
Well, it's interesting because when we get into recovery, Christina, a lot of the times we're told it's like, you know what, you got to back off a little bit, right? You got to back off
Hmm.
and you got to just let things happen and maybe things will be let go and everything. And I think that that's great advice because uh obviously there's clearly sometimes there's empirical data that things are not working, like alcoholism, right? Like obviously be there that you've got to quit, it's not good for you. But I found in recovery that I think a lot of people think in recovery, Christina, that things are going to be easy.
So true.
Like, okay, well, that's it. Like, I'm through with alcoholism. I'm through with drug addiction. I'm through with the eating thing or codependency. Like, that's it. It's just going to be easy. I have not found my recovery easy necessarily
No.
over the last several decades. What about you?
Well, they promise us it won't be easy. It may be simple, but it's never been easy. I've had decades where there hasn't been any kind of calling toward a substance, but that isn't the only thing that I've had to struggle with. So, for sure, I've had to, get in there and do the work. I love it when they say it's not easy, but it is simple. So, if you are struggling, hang tight because I can tell you that regardless of the struggle, the best thing I've ever done is put down drinking.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And and here's the thing with it too. It's like, should everything be a struggle? No. I find recovery, it's like riding a bike. There's times that you have to pedal a lot. And then there's
Mhm.
sometimes you don't, you can kind of go downhill and cruise a little bit. And you can, you don't have to be pedaling full out all the time. Like right now in my life, I'm just going to be honest. Like I feel like I have to pedal, and every
Mhm.
pedal step is very, very difficult right now. Like, and it's tiring, right? Like,
Mhm.
and sometimes you automatically think it's like, well, this is not right, this is not good, that something's wrong here. But sometimes that's not the case at all.
No, and I'll take it even one step further. I used to think that if it was hard, that means that I was doing something wrong or I was bad. That really there was some kind of mystic accountant in the sky that was tallying both sides, and that struggle meant that I was, doing it wrong and I was a bad person. And now I have actually understood in many cases, I was the conduit for the work to be done, that the actual transformation was what I was going after. And if it was easy, then something wasn't going right. It wasn't maybe worth it. Now, I've had many moments where I have had a higher power come in, whatever you want to call your higher power, and make things easy. But I also have the benefit of being, midlife. So I can look back on the last 25 years and think about, oh my gosh, this really was the easier road. If I was to be honest, I had a lot of luck and a lot of fortunate circumstances that helped me get sober early and stay sober.
Well, this also comes down to this whole idea of grace, right?
Hmm.
I was confused about grace in early recovery because I thought grace was an undeserved gift,
Right.
right? Like, well, I didn't deserve this and it just came. But that's not what grace says actually. Grace is really it's an unearned gift, meaning
Right.
it comes to a site, you didn't do anything to earn it. It has nothing to do with deservability. And I think this whole idea, we were talking the other day about like these triggers about like injustice is a big trigger for me. And I was talking with a buddy of mine and he's like, oh, I've got that too. We were at lunch yesterday. He's like, I've got that too. Like, I hate injustice. Like, I
Mhm.
really don't like if I don't perceive things as fair. And I think a lot of this times with struggle, we perceive it as fair, not fair. And honestly, that's not a really good gauge. That's not the right ruler to use for that.
No, no, I had a therapist who would tell me the fair's in Pomona when I would say that. And we don't know the end of the story. We have no idea how something that feels like a struggle now will be the exact amount of skills that we needed to, have a huge joyful occurrence happen in our life. I can certainly look back and realize that some of the things that I suffered in childhood, some of the trauma that I was given gave me the exact skill set that I needed for this next challenge. So I just want to let everybody know that, pain is not optional in life, but suffering is.
Yes, absolutely. And you know what? I still struggle with that concept, honestly. I struggle with the struggle because, it's just like, it just doesn't seem fair to me. It's like, well,
No,
why is this happening? Why is this not? Now, but here's the interesting thing here before we dive into this next segment here. The interesting thing about this is when you look at it, I look back too and I say, all the things that I struggled and I don't feel like I got the payoff for, right?
right.
Because it's like, well, I'm struggling. I'm not getting what I want. There was a payoff. It
Hmm.
just didn't come at the time that I thought it was. I was talking with you about a skill that we're using for recovered life. I got that skill. It was not paid off when I got that skill. I worked and worked and worked at it. I didn't get the payoff at the time,
Right,
right? It didn't come out the way that I thought. But now, decades later, I'm using that skill that I learned from
right.
that situation and I'm getting massive payoff from it. So it's all this whole thing about struggling and everything. I'm realizing it's all just really perception. It's how I'm hearing it and viewing it.
That is exactly true, exactly true, and that perception, most of the time we're looking at it, it's like looking at a painting, 1 inch of a painting, right? Your eye is right there, so you're noticing all the flaws, and time gives us that ability to step backwards, 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 and then we see the whole picture, and we realize, actually, things had to happen exactly like they did in order for me to be here, and I know that. I mean, what you said at the beginning, Damon Frank, was so powerful. Grace is not earned. I mean, grace is something like that.
Yeah.
It is not
Yeah.
about being
It's not about
deserving.
deservability. Grace is
It
not
is
about
not about
deservability.
deservability. And I just
Yeah.
love that. I'm going to take that with me this whole day. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all. And I got to tell you, I love having these little impromptu chats on the live show, on the Recovered Life live show, because that's really what this is all about. It's also just a forum also for Christina and I to talk about what's going on, because we know through coaching, Christina, and this
Yes.
is the interesting thing. One of the things that I've learned through coaching, especially a lot of high performance people, right, that are in recovery and having relationships with people in recovery, is that I am not alone in the things that are going on with me. Sometimes I will think it's like, well, I've got to be the only one that's dealing with this. How am I dealing with this when I do all the work? I do all the footwork.
Right.
We just had something, Christina. We just had like a tech issue that we had, earlier today. We did everything right. There was that, but there's certain things that are just out of our control.
So, so true. And once we learn that acceptance piece that comes with recovery, that we are powerless over people, places, things, and technology, then we can live a much more peaceful life. That's why suffering is optional. Once you recognize that there is part of life has pain and it has great joy, which is a paradox, but so, so true. You actually mature spiritually. I matured spiritually because once I was willing to accept that things were going to happen that were not in my control, nor did I like, I was able to deal with them better. And they always gave me a diving board, a jumping off point
Yeah.
for the next huge thing that paid off, in full. I've heard this before. It comes from the Bible. Double your trouble. It will. It will eventually be there. If you stick out recovery, you will get twice as much as you thought you were supposed to have. Keep
Oh yeah,
going.
and I think it's even more than twice as much, honestly, in my opinion. I mean,
True.
here's what I always say. And I forget sometimes, Kristina, sometimes I forget, when you have been doing the deal for a while, sometimes you have to think back to the way that it was, the thinking that you had
Mhm.
when you first come into this recovery process. It's not the same
No,
as you have a couple decades later. It's not. It shouldn't be the same as
no.
you have. But the interesting thing is, I forget a lot of times that some of the people that listen to the show, some of the people that we talk with in the recovered life discussions on Clubhouse, a lot of the people that join us on recoveredlife.us, that are in the social community that we're talking with, they, maybe have relapsed 3 or 4 times. They've never really been able, and they wake up, they listen to the show, because we've talked with people about this that have done this. They listen to the show and they're like, why can't I get it together? Like, why is this not working for me? Right. And, my message here always is like, it's not over until it's over, and it's not over yet. So
That's
if
right.
you're awake, aware, and alive today, it's not over. It's not over. The ending has not been written yet. And I do believe that there's seasons, and I'm talking to the people, primarily the people that are constant relapsers, right? I do believe there are seasons that it's easier to get sober. I do. I do believe that sometimes the higher power sometimes interjects that and says it's like right now is the time. And some people take that, some people don't. I do believe that because I've seen it, but
Yes.
it's not over until it's over. And if you're awake and aware and alive today, you do have a chance to change the ending of the story.
You do. You have more than a chance because we've seen it done. I've seen that happen in my life. And if you are not part of Recovered Life, join it. It's info@recoveredlife.us and become part of the discussion. It's so much easier when you're within the herd, when you're in the middle and you're learning, and stick it out.
Yes.
No matter
Yes.
what, don't
And
pick up.
no matter what, stick it out. Look, if you have the awareness that things can change and you see it around you, I think the biggest thing, Kristina, in this whole thing with people that just feel that and if you're out there listening to this, even if it's on the replay, like if you're listening to this, you're like, well, hey man, I've tried this, I've tried that. You just got to find somebody who has done it, and you have
Mhm.
to look at, because if you could see it in them, I always say this with coaching, if you could see it in them, it's possible for you, because it's just an energy level, right? Like you've got to like find the people that you can hang with to get the consciousness, to get to a place where you can get physical recovery, right? Away from drugs and alcohol, maybe away from the people that you need, long enough so that you can get the deal, so that you can get the grace. I do believe grace is available for everyone, in my opinion.
I do too. I do too. And I love the fact that, this too will pass. So hang in that the first 30, 60 days. Yeah, they're not easy. They are not easy. But if you continue to stick it out and be in the group, right? Have that person, have that coach, a therapist, a sponsor, whatever is your path, maybe all three like me, you will be so happy. It'll be the best decision that you've made.
Keep the conversation going. Join Recovered Life, a community of like-minded people who are looking to live their best recovered lives. Membership is free, and you can apply at recoveredlife.us.